This was once the center of the world. Kings feared it. Prophets cursed it by name. Travelers swore its walls rose so high they brushed the sky. You are standing inside it, the ISH tar gate behind you, 40 feet of deep blue glazed brick, bulls and dragons prowling the walls, a road paved for the march of a god, the largest city humankind had ever built, the richest. And today we are not even sure its most famous wonder was ever truly here, the capital of the world, and we can no longer prove what was real. Its name is Bab-Elon. It rose on the Euphrates, in the flat green heart of Mesopotamia, what is now Iraq. The city was already unimaginably old. Kings had ruled here and carved their laws into black stone more than 1,000 years before Nebuchadnezzar was born. By the 6th century before Christ, under his reign, Bab-Elon became the showpiece of the planet. He rebuilt it into something that read less like a city than a boast. Walls so broad a chariot could turn on top of them, gates sheathed in blue and gold, a tower climbing toward heaven. People did not simply visit Bab-Elon. They came to be overwhelmed by it. So how does a place like this, the most envied, most written about city of its age, end as a low field of broken mud brick that travelers drive past without slowing? To find out, we climb 3 of its wonders, because each one was real. Each was lost a completely different way. Start with the tower. You already know it. Only you know it as a fable. The Tower of Babel. Humankind builds a tower to reach the sky. A god scatters their languages. The work dissolves into confusion. For centuries, that was filed under myth. But here is what the textbooks were slow to admit. The tower behind the legend was real. Its name was Ate-Me-Na-Enki, the foundation of heaven and earth. A ziggurat of mud brick that rose stage upon stage above the rooftops, perhaps 300 feet high, a staircase built, so a god could walk down into the city. Babylon's own clay records describe it. Greek travelers measured it. Nebuchadnezzar left an inscription bragging that he raised its summit to rival the heavens. The myth did not invent the tower. The tower invented the myth. So, if it truly stood, solid, documented, real, where is it now? You can visit the exact spot. There is almost nothing there, a square scar in the earth, robbed for its bricks century after century, until the mountain that touched heaven became an empty pit. Now the wonder everyone remembers. The hanging gardens of Bab-Elon, green terraces spilling down a man-made mountain, trees in flower in the middle of a desert. The only one of the 7 wonders built not for a god, but for love, a gift to a homesick queen. It is the most beautiful picture the ancient world ever handed us. But here is the strangest part. It is not that the hanging gardens disappeared. It is that Bab-Elon itself left us almost nothing to prove they were ever there. Bab-Elonian scribes wrote down everything, yet not one surviving tablet, not even from Nebuchadnezzar, who listed his building works in obsessive detail, clearly describes them. A century of digging at Bab-Elon has turned up no certain trace. No terraces, no vaulting, none of the vast waterworks such a garden would have demanded. So some scholars now ask a quietly heretical question. What if the most famous garden in history was never really Bab-Elon's? One followed the trail north to Nineveh, a rival capital, where palace carvings actually show terraced gardens fed by a great screw of bronze. The wonder of Bab-Elon may have been borrowed, not seized by an army but by a rumor, a scribe's slip, a name remembered wrong for 2,000 years. Which leaves the last question, the big one. What brings down a city like this? We expect an ending the size of the legend: fire, a siege, the fury of a god. Bab Eglon gives us none of it. In 539 before Christ, the Persian King Cyrus reached the walls, the greatest fortress on earth, and by the surviving accounts, it changed hands in a single night, almost without a fight. The gates stood open. The king was at a feast. By morning, Babylon simply had a new master, its walls untouched. So the city lived on, but the center of the world began, quietly, to move. New rulers raised new capitals elsewhere. The Euphrates, the river that made Bab Eglon possible, slid from its bed and pulled away. The canals choked with silt. The people drifted toward younger cities. It happened so slowly that no one wrote down the end. The temples emptied. The last astronomers kept pressing star charts into clay long after anyone was left to read them. Brick by brick, the greatest city on earth was carried off to build smaller ones. Nobody burned Babylon. Nobody ever had to. It was not destroyed, it was abandoned, left to the slow, patient work of forgetting that no army could ever match. And that is the strange truth of Babylon. We argue over whether its gardens were real, not because the city was small or poor or forgotten in its own time, but because it was the opposite. It was so central, so certain of itself, so sure it would stand forever, that no one ever imagined it needed protecting from time. The wonders were real, the tower was real, the king was real. What failed was memory, because Babylon did not vanish. It was misremembered, its wonders scattered to other cities, its proof worn down to dust, its very name turned into a word for confusion. The capital of the world did not fall in fire or flood. It slipped slowly and quietly into the wrong half of human memory, while we were certain it would last forever. Bab Eglon was not the only giant history misplaced. North along the Tigris lies Nineveh, the city that may hold the real hanging gardens, buried so deeply that for centuries people swore it too was only a legend. We'll walk it next. But before you go, I want to hear from you. What is something you were taught was just a myth, a place, a name, a story that turned out to be completely real? Pull up a stool and tell me. I'm June, and this has been The Hour, where we keep a light on for the things the world let itself forget.